Good morning, ITR. Welcome. I think this is the 10th time I'm welcoming you. So I hope everybody had a good night last night at Sweden. Yes? Yeah, okay, good. We are very pleased to start a fantastic program today. But I think I was a little perplexed last night of all the days, first of all, for someone who spent and still unfortunately spends his time tracking down lost property, even though I'm not at the TLC in New York anymore. People still call me for some reason. We've left anything from, we've recovered prosthetic legs, we've recovered jewelry worth millions of dollars. Our driver of the year returned $250,000, but people are always leaving things in cabs. I've never once left anything in a cab in my life, except for last night. We couldn't find the house of Sweden. I was in a cab, and unfortunately we don't have credit cards yet, but the mayor and Commissioner Linton are getting them. So I started really complaining about the cab driver not having a credit card. I said, why can't, he's like, I'm an independent guy. I said, well, why don't you just get it? It's better, it's safer for you. All the major cities are starting to get them now. Your mayor and your chairman were trying to get them. And I rarely, pounce on drivers. I said, you should be ashamed of yourself. Of course, he's like, here, sir, here's your receipt. I was this close to saying to hell with it. I took it, I get inside, hanging out at the cocktail. That's why you didn't see me. I was like, where's my phone? See, there's a lot of proprietary information on this phone. So anyway, if there's one person in the city who could have found that phone and should have gotten that phone, it's me. I'm with the DC cab commissioner. The mayor's coming the next morning. And even though the system is not perfect and it's being made better, I said, you know what? Lou Hamilton told me the phone's in the Potomac. I said, after the way I talked to that cab driver, you're probably right. But anyway, long story short, I gave the receipt to Ron. He gave it to Neville, and Neville basically helped track it down. I got it back. So it's a DC Cinderella story. So basically, thank God, because I need this for demonstrations today with the app day. Of all the days to lose it, but amazing story. But thank you so much. My hats off to the DC Cab Commission. We're making fantastic improvements. Ron, Neville, thanks for getting it back. We're pleased to have the mayor here today. I'm going to introduce Ron, Commissioner Linton, Chairman Linton, to come up and say a few words and to introduce him. But we are so pleased to be here, Mr. Mayor, in this great city, our nation's capital, and we're so pleased that you're undertaking reforms. That's what ITR is all about. We're a peer group of taxi commissioners and professionals, transportation professionals from around the world. And when you made a great choice in picking Ron, and we all admire his efforts and at times his bluntness, but his ability to get the job done. He's a great speaker, but he's getting things done, and we would urge you to keep up the reform efforts, because there's now a trend of reform, and it started like in the late 90s, but in the last year or two, a lot of major cities are realizing that the first and the last face you see when you come to a city is a cab driver, and the cab driver is the face of the city. And if you want to bid on the Super Bowl, the Olympics, or major events, or improve your tourism industry, which benefits the city, you need to have a good cab system. And it's about time a lot of cities around the world are getting this wake-up call. Whether it's, a lot of major cities are undertaking reforms, including, Chicago, San Francisco, or places in Australia, New Orleans. But Washington, D.C. is our nation's capital. And it really should be the shining example, and it will be, for the rest of the world. In addition to, of course, New York and London, a lot of the major cities that are around here. But this is a group that has big cities, small cities. There are states represented. Everybody has a different system, and it's locally regulated. And there are a lot of nuances, and it is complicated. I mean, I'm sure when you get briefings and people try to explain the arcane economics of medallions and taxis, it's a bit of a case study. It takes a little time to layer it all. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. It's about the passengers, and it's about small businesses. It's the passengers who we need to serve. It's them that come first. And also, a close second or an equal tie is really the men and women who, unfortunately, sometimes they make up this industry. Sometimes people say, "Oh, they're fat cats. They're people who are making too much money." That's not true. They're mostly small businesses. The vast majority of them, is the third most diverse workforce in the United States, the taxi driving pool. So, Ron, we admire your work. We admire your efforts. We are so fond of the fact that you've graciously hosted our event and helped us every step of the way. And thanks for getting my phone back, brother. Chairman Litton.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Matt. And first, I apologize for having taken so long to return that for you. We're trying to establish 15 minutes as our turnaround time. And second, thank you for summarizing my mayor's remarks. I'm really pleased and honored to be able to introduce to you today my leader and the mayor of the District of Columbia, the Honorable Vincent Gray. You know, I've been here long enough that I've known personally every man and woman who has served as mayor of the District of Columbia since we had home rule in 1974. And I've served in other capacities under several of them, but I can say without contradiction that none of them was more dedicated to making the District of Columbia a first-class, a world-class, a city that not only everyone who lives here will be proud of, but every citizen in the United States will be proud of. Mayor Gray has dedicated himself to development of public policy well across the board that in 2 years is beginning to show great promise. Our economic situation here is rebounding with great strides. Our unemployment is falling. Our One City program that he devised is beginning to work. We're experiencing about 1,000 new residents moving to the district every month. And on his broad table of things that he has to do is the area that he asked me to oversee, and that's the public vehicle for hire, with the instructions that we have to have that as a 21st century first-class system if all the other aspects of what we're trying to do are going to work. He's laid down a public policy that he'll tell you about, and he has given me the instructions to make sure that it gets implemented. And I'm grateful with all the demands on his time that he's given me the support that has really allowed us in 60 months to move this forward with a great deal of speed, with the one bump in the road that's a legal matter, kind of out of my hands and his hands, but we're going to address it and we're going to solve it. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming my mayor, the Honorable Vincent Gray.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Matt for his leadership with the IATR. I want to thank Ron Litton, of course, for his leadership here in the District of Columbia to our taxicab industry. And by the way, welcome to one of our finest hotels in the District of Columbia. As I'm sure you've realized, it is a hotel for all seasons. It is one that is great in welcoming people to our city, and is great for hosting conferences here in the city as well. Again, I want to thank Matt for his leadership of the IATR, and I want to thank Ron for his leadership of our Taxicab Commission here in the District of Columbia. And I understand that this is the 25th anniversary conference, which is a real milestone. And I hope that you leave here having accomplished all the goals that you set out to. I also understand that you were on the Hill yesterday working for certain changes, policy changes that the association wants to see within the I guess the vehicle for hire industry across the nation. I assume that you continue to subscribe to the same principles that we do here in the city, and that is first and foremost to be able to protect consumers as they use this ever-increasing industry. And then secondly, along the way, that we don't undermine any of the benefits of technology that continues to be introduced into this industry. You know, at the risk of being somewhat pejorative, the industry that we found has included a lot of dedicated drivers here in the District of Columbia, but we had an awful long ways to go. I don't know how many of you have been around long enough to remember the archaic zone system that we had in the District of Columbia. The one thing that you could count on with the zone system is that virtually nobody understood it. You know, and what was incredible was that if you went all the way to the other side of a zone, you actually benefited because you got a longer ride for the same price as if you just went inside the zone. And I better stop with that because I have a feeling you'll be wondering, what the heck is this guy talking about with a zone system? But we had no meters at all, and that was just in recent years that was the case. So we've set out really to reform this industry in the district, and this is what Ron is charged with doing. And we have a very assertive and aggressive 8-point plan that was adopted, including legislation that was presented to our council here in the District of Columbia that now has been adopted, laying out how we want to move forward. And one of those is we have meters to some extent here in the city, but we are moving forward now with the introduction of an entirely new meter system. And as Ron indicated, we had a slight setback. We were moving along apace with a contract that we had awarded, and it was protested. In a democracy, people have a right to be able to raise issues, and there were a couple of flaws that were found. So we're having to correct that. But we expect within the next couple of 3 months that we will be moving forward and will have not only a brand new meter system introduced into our taxi cab system here in the District of Columbia, but really having a full-blown credit card reader system. And frankly, I often talk about the public safety features that are associated with credit cards because it begins to take cash out of the industry in ways that really, I think, benefit everybody. And we had a really tragic, dramatic example of that just within the last 2 weeks, where there was a driver who picked up 2 young people here in the district, wanted to go to an area in northeast Washington. When he got there, of course, the driver is vulnerable because the driver's in front and the passengers are in the back. These were 2 very young people, 17 years old each. And when he stopped and got them to their destination, one pulled out a gun and shot him in the head. The cab then was lost control of, ran into a fence, caught on fire, and the driver was not only killed, but the driver was burned. You know, I don't know if beyond recognition, but burned very, very badly in the course of that. So I cite that only as another way of citing the importance of the reforms that we're trying to introduce here in the District of Columbia. One of those reforms also is a safety alert system that would allow both the passengers as well as the drivers to be able to alert law enforcement officials that something untoward is happening in the taxi cab. And imagine if he had had any warning at all, he would have been able to, under our new system, our reform system, to be able to hit a button that would have alerted law enforcement officials. Now, the 2 people who perpetrated this heinous act have been apprehended, but maybe it could have been prevented, possibly. Maybe they would have been apprehended almost immediately after this occurred. We also are working to introduce monitors into our cabs. We don't have any monitors at all at this stage, which will allow people to even get the news while they're riding along. And of course, we'll make sure it's all the good news in the District of Columbia. We won't show any bad news in our cabs in the District of Columbia because it is such a great opportunity. GPS. We actually have, and some of you, the features we're talking about are certainly not new to some of you, I'm sure, but we actually don't have GPS systems in our cars here in the city. And we do, unfortunately, have some drivers who don't know how to get to certain places. We do have some street names that are not known to a lot of people in the city, even to our drivers, and sometimes that is used as a basis for not going to a particular place. And of course, one of the things is our color scheme. We know that everybody likes our color scheme in the District of Columbia, because if you don't like the color of the cab coming down the street, if you wait a minute, there'll be another color coming down the street. So we're actually moving to a uniform color system after decades in the city. How far along are we? We actually have gotten 4 cars. We are going to paint them in the colors that we are considering. They will be on display in Union Station. They will be on display at our auto show in February. We're going to get feedback from people as to what they like, and then we'll move forward with, over the next several years, starting to change all the colors of the taxi cabs in the city. We also now have regulations that say that taxi cabs cannot be beyond a certain age. And I think we're on, is it 7 years? Cannot be more than 7 years old. That will also allow us to move quickly with our new color scheme. I was in a meeting about 4 or 5 months ago, and I was talking about the color scheme, and one of our business leaders in the District of Columbia said, "Boy, that's a great idea, because the predominant color of the cabs in D.C. up to now has been rust," which of course was an affirmation of being able to move in another direction. We also, and I think this is really a good thing, we have increasingly large numbers of people who have disabilities, who use or want to use our cabs in the city. And we are, over the next several years, going to add more wheelchair accessible taxi cabs in the city. We don't know I don't know if we can get to 10 to 20%. Ultimately, that will be a good thing, but we have so few now, and unfortunately we have drivers who really don't want to, in some instances, pick up passengers who may have a disability. One of the things that Matt mentioned that is absolutely incredibly true, and that is, when you look at the hospitality industry, so often the first person in a city the first person that's seen is a taxi cab driver, because a person may be picked up at the airport, at the train station, at the bus station, and frankly, if that person is not courteous and customer friendly, it can actually influence whether a person even wants to come back to your city again. So we are committed to reform. We're working with Ron to try to make this happen, and we're delighted to be a part of this conference, and hopefully we'll learn some additional things that we can do. I want to thank you all for coming to the District of Columbia. I wish I had gotten to talk to you before you went on the Hill, because one of the things I would have said to you is that as much as we are the nation's capital and we want to be a model, we wish we also were a model for democracy, because we are deprived of rights here in the District of Columbia that other people enjoy. We don't have a congressperson who has a vote. We have an outstanding congresswoman, Eleanor Holmes Norton. She has no vote. She just got elected to her 12th term. She can't even vote on issues that affect the District of Columbia. We have no senators in the District of Columbia, and what a lot of people don't know is that we don't even have the authority to approve our own budget in the city, and we raise our own money. We raise our own money through sales taxes, through property taxes, and through income taxes, just like everybody else. Now, can you imagine if you went back, to wherever you live, and somebody said you have to send your local budget to the Congress? Can you imagine if some cities like Chicago and New York had to do that? They'd probably abolish the Congress. But that's what we have to do. And we would love to be able to deliver a message that we ought to be able to have the autonomy, the authority to approve how to spend our own money. Can you imagine me reaching in your pocket, first of all, to see how much money you have? I find out that you've got $20 in there. I look at the $20 bill and I say, that's nice. I know this is your money, but you have to ask me for the authority and the approval to be able to spend it. And that's exactly what we have in the District of Columbia. So as you continue to work on behalf of the vehicle for hire industry in this nation, keep us in mind also that we are the nation's capital, but we also are the center of taxation without representation, which is the basis upon which this country was founded, the resistance to that. Yet we practice it in our own nation's capital. Would you like to know how I really feel about this? Now, again, The other thing I want to urge you to do is, you know, we've been in a recession. We're approaching the fiscal cliff with the possible sequestration. As Ron indicated, we are working hard to move ourselves out of this recessionary economy that we've been in, and we're really making some strides if you look at how things are going in the city. But you all can help us. The way you can help us is, I should have said starting with yesterday, but until you leave the city, we want you to figure out how to spend every nickel that you have in your pocket. We want you to be able to leave everything behind. And frankly, just so you know, maybe our taxi cabs are not really credit card equipped the way they should, but the rest of our city is. We'll take your credit cards, your checks, your IOUs, every form of legal tender that you have. We will be happy to help take care of that for you as we move our city forward. Again, in all seriousness, I want to welcome you all to the city. I hope you've enjoyed the time you've already spent here. I hope that you will enjoy the rest of the conference and maybe stay over a day or two and enjoy this great city. Thank you all very much and have a great conference.